Welcome back everyone. Today we will be looking at a 2021 supernatural adventure movie called Ghostbusters: Afterlife. Spoilers ahead. Summerville, Oklahoma, a proton blast shoots out the top of a mine shaft at the Shandor Mining Company and into a swirling vortex of clouds under a midnight sky. Then an old pickup truck comes hauling out of the mine shaft and down a desolate rural road. The driver is a bearded elderly man obscured in the darkness of his truck's cabin. He looks down at the passenger seat and touches a ghost trap that's holding a spirit. His truck is being chased by an unseen creature that is eventually able to sideswipe the vehicle and send it crashing into a cornfield. The man stumbles out into an open field in front of an old farmhouse. He gets to the porch and turns around and holds up the trap baiting the unseen spirit in the cornfield. The old man is Egon Spengler and he readies a foot pedal switch as invisible steps are seen advancing in the dirt across the field. When it is in position, Egon stomps the pedal and several electric towers begin to activate. But they short out before powering on the device they were intended for and Egon quickly goes inside and shuts the door. He hides the trap in a compartment under the wood floor and then sits in a chair with his PKE meter. As fog fills the room, his PKE begins to light up and its arms extend reminiscent of when a ghost is present. Egon is attacked in his chair and the PKE meter falls to the floor and turns off. A spirit orb is seen leaving the house from outside. Back in the house, the PKE meter activates again alluding to a new ghost nearby. Egon's estranged daughter Callie lives with her kids Trevor and Phoebe, the latter sharing Egon's keen interest in science. They are soon evicted from their home due to Callie being unable to come up with rent money, but she learns that Egon left her family the house in Summerville, so she packs up her things with the kids and heads out there. They find a dilapidated house full of clutter. As they're looking around, Janine, the Ghostbusters receptionist, walks in and tells them that Egon had a lot of debt at a valueless farm. The ground begins to shake in what appears to be tremors from an earthquake, and the family huddle under a table. Callie admits to them that they will be staying there for a while until she can figure out what to do. Phoebe spots the PKE meter under the chair her grandfather was in when he died. Callie later takes the kids to get dinner at a burger shop, where Trevor goes in to apply for a job. He is instantly smitten with an older girl named Lucky who works there, but the other guys tease Trevor as he tries to talk to her. They find that it's a very small southern town where everyone knew of the mysterious man they all called the Dirt Farmer since there was no evidence he ever grew any crops. When they return home, Phoebe notices her chessboard and pieces all scattered on the ground, so she resets them before going to bed. Meanwhile, Trevor walks around outside and goes to the barn where he discovers the Ecto-1. In the morning, Phoebe finds that one of the chess pieces moved, so she moves one of her own pieces. Callie drives Trevor to start work at the burger place while Phoebe starts summer school. Callie meets Phoebe's teacher Gary as she drops her off. Gary is just there to collect a paycheck and has the kids watch VHSs of old horror movies, the first one being Cujo, while he sits in the back doing research on the ongoing tremors in the area. Phoebe meets her classmate Podcast, who has his own podcast for the supernatural. While talking, an earthquake happens. Phoebe goes to Gruberson's office, where she learns that he is a seismologist and has been monitoring seismic activity coming from somewhere in town over the last few years. Phoebe impresses him with her knowledge on seismology and he explains to her that the tremor wave patterns don't match up with typical earthquakes from history. Phoebe and Podcast later walk toward the mines where they find what looks like an old skeleton of a monster. Back home, Trevor starts to fix up the Ecto-1's engine. Later at night, Phoebe sees that the chess pieces moved again. And when she moves her own piece, the ghost in the room knocks her piece off the board. The ghost leads her downstairs by turning on lights until she finds the ghost trap under a floor panel. Back at school, Phoebe brings the ghost trap and shows Podcast, but Gruberson sees it and becomes curious. He tells Phoebe and Podcast that despite Summerville not having an epicenter, it has experienced a lot of earthquakes in recent years. He brings up the old ghost sightings and shows Phoebe and Podcast a video of the original Ghostbusters after they saved Manhattan from destruction in the 80s, and Phoebe learns that her grandfather was a Ghostbuster. Gruberson takes them outside the school to see how the trap works, but they accidentally unleash a monstrous ghost that flies toward the Shandor mine. Gruberson takes Phoebe and Podcast back home, where it appears there is some chemistry between Callie and Gruberson. The kids go through more of Egon's stuff, finding a book about Gozer the Gazarian, the same evil ancient entity that terrorized Manhattan all those years ago, as well as the knowledge of Gozer being freed by the gatekeeper and keymaster. Meanwhile, Lucky invites Trevor to go out with her friends to hang out at the mines, where they find one of the ghostly entities bursts out and flies away. Phoebe takes the PKE meter and goes to the barn where she comes across Egon's old workspace and computer room. She finds his old uniform with his name on it, and soon realizes that the ghost that's been following her is Egon. She fixes up one of his devices before returning to her room. When Phoebe later asks Callie what kind of scientist Egon was, she brushes him off with resentment for abandoning her and her mother. In the morning, Phoebe brings Egon's old proton pack to show Podcast as they test out the beam, which turns out to still be powerful. They then hear a noise coming from inside a building, and they find a blue blobby ghost that they name Muncher because it eats metal. The ghost spots Phoebe and Podcast and attacks by roaring out metal shards at them. They fire the proton beam at Muncher, causing him to fly away. They chase after the ghost, just as Trevor rides in after having fixed up the Ecto-1 and taking it out for a spin. He picks up Phoebe and Podcast as they chase after Muncher, with Phoebe sitting in the car's retractable seat and continuing to fire the proton beam at Muncher. Meanwhile, Callie is on a date with Gruberson, expressing her worries about Phoebe not fitting in. The kids drive through town chasing Muncher and firing the beam, which Callie and Gruberson notice. The three chase Muncher outside of town going toward the mine, using a remote-controlled trap to catch the ghost. As they are driving back, they are caught and arrested by Sheriff Domingo. In the jail cell, the three find that Lucky is Domingo's daughter, but she backs up Trevor's account of the ghost they saw as he tells Phoebe and Podcast. Phoebe uses her one phone call to contact Ray Stans, who runs an occult antique shop out of the former Ghostbusters headquarters. When Phoebe mentions Egon, Ray says he can rot in hell until Phoebe mentions he is dead, at which point he feels remorse. Ray explains to Phoebe that Egon had a major falling out with him and the other Ghostbusters before he retreated to Somerville with every single bit of their old equipment. The last time Ray spoke to Egon, he mentioned some crazy talk about the apocalypse. Phoebe manages to tell Ray she is Egon's granddaughter before Domingo makes her hang up. Callie and Gruberson come to bail the kids out, but Domingo keeps all the Ghostbusters equipment in storage. Phoebe confronts her mom for not telling her who their grandfather really was. Callie counters with the history she had with her dad. She wasn't into science like he was and felt like they never bonded and he didn't care about her. That's why he left them and became a recluse on the Oklahoma farm, she concluded. Back at the mine, something awakens. Gruberson goes to Walmart for ice cream but then notices little bags of Stay Puft marshmallows coming to life, with little marshmallow men popping out of the bags. Gruberson keeps walking until he finds Vince Clartho the keymaster in the aisle. He runs for his life, but the beast chases Gruberson all the way to his car and attacks him. Back at the farmhouse, Callie finds the hidden lab and discovers that her father Egon had a memory board of all her life on the wall. Just as she realizes that he truly cared about her, the other demon dog finds her in the lab and possesses her. The kids, feeling there's got to be a reason their grandfather would sacrifice everything to live on a farm in the middle of nowhere, find in his lab that his dirt farm was actually a field of hundreds of ghost traps meant to capture Gozer. They realize that his trap must have failed and set off to investigate the mine shaft once more. They find a temple with a statue of Gozer, plus the preserved body of Ivo Shandor, a cult leader devoted to Gozer. There are years marked on the walls from various seismic events over the decades, and it looks as though Shandor was preparing to reawaken in the current year for Gozer's return. Another earthquake happens, but the kids discover the source, a ghostly portal underneath a trap Egon built to keep Gozer and other evil ghosts at bay. The trap activates when Gozer tries to emerge, and the kids run. The kids return home to find Callie possessed by Zool. She jumps out the window and runs off towards the mine shaft, while Gruberson, now possessed by Vince Clartho, disables Egon's trap, leading to many evil ghosts to be set free into Somerville. The kids go to Egon's lab and get his equipment and uniforms to try and stop Gozer themselves. As the town falls into widespread panic, the kids go to the station where they free Muncher so he can eat through the metal bars and get the confiscated equipment. While this goes on, Zool and Vince Clartho gather to summon Gozer. They arrive at the mine and witness Callie and Gary transforming into the demon dog forms with Gozer sitting between them. Shandor awakens and tries to appease the evil ghost, but Gozer tears Shandor in two pieces. Phoebe steps out from hiding to talk to and distract Gozer while Podcast controls the RC trap and captures the demon dog possessing Callie. This releases her from dog form as she passes out. The kids escape in Ecto-1 with Callie as the Gary still possessed in dog form chases after them. They make their way to the farmhouse and attempt the same trap as Egon. Callie and Phoebe stand on the porch holding the ghost trap with the demon dog that Gozer needs to become fully resurrected. Gozer appears out of the cornfield and Phoebe tries to turn on the traps but they fail again just as they had the first time with Egon. Some mini Stay Puft Marshmallow Men sabotage the equipment inside Ecto-1, which allows Gozer to release the demon dog from the ghost trap. The freed dog possesses Lucky. Just as Gozer, now back to full strength, is about to kill Phoebe, she is hit with a proton blast from behind. It's Ray Stantz who had just arrived with Peter Venkman and Winston Zeddemore. The three original Ghostbusters cross the beams and fire at Gozer. She appears subdued but then begins uncrossing the beams and blasts the Ghostbusters back, causing them all to fall down. Gozer approaches them as Peter jokingly complains about the inherent troubles in their relationship. Just as she reaches them, she is again captured by a soul proton beam. This time it's Phoebe, whose aim is being guided by the ghost of Egon. The other three Ghostbusters jump up and join the battle by firing their beams as well. With the combined force of 4 beams once again, Gozer is suppressed but not captured. Meanwhile, Trevor and Podcast have been able to defeat the mini-puffs and repair the sabotaged equipment, allowing Trevor to emerge from Ecto-1 and fire his proton beam at the electrical capacitors. The burst of energy charges them up. Callie throws the switch to try to turn the traps on again, and this time they successfully activate, capturing Gozer, Demon Dogs and other ghosts. Trevor helps break Lucky out of the shell that was once Zool, along with Gruberson coming out of the Vince Clartho shell. The old Ghostbusters talk to the new ones, and Venkman acknowledges that Phoebe really is Egon's granddaughter. Egon's ghost looks at his friends, as they reconcile for their earlier feud, and Callie is able to finally hug her father before he crosses over. The old Ghostbusters return to New York City in the Ecto-1. In the mid-credits scene, Venkman is seen married to Dana Barrett, who is doing his old electroshock test on him. In the post-credits scene, we see a flashback of a deleted scene from the original movie of Egon giving Janine a coin. In the present day, she shows the coin to Winston, who is making arrangements to have the old headquarters in Ecto-1 restored. Meanwhile, one of the ghost containment units starts to glow red. Thanks for watching till the end. Hope you enjoyed the video and don't forget to like and comment on the video and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like these.